I think it's just a really nice moment because we have Glexis and Izzy here. I have to gather myself, having watched it. It's kind of like there's a lot in there. But firstly, thank you for making that piece of work.
Thank you.
I think it's a really valuable social and directly artistic document for us. And I think it does, for that, I think, thank you. Izzy, I'm going to start with you.
No pressure.
What's your role in the film? I know what it is, but how did you get involved in it? And then we'll obviously come back to certain things. But first, Izzy.
So I just translated it. And then it came about last year. I organised an exhibition of contemporary Cuban graphics in Nottingham, and it involved a whole Cuban delegation of creatives and functionaries coming across. And then at the last minute, it looked like they might not make it from Havana to Nottingham. So I got in contact with you, asked if you would be interested in doing anything in the space, and you said you had this film, but it was in Spanish. I said, "Oh, be good, but like we need a translation." And luckily the delegation came through, but then we decided actually it would be good to translate it anyway because it's not been screened to an English-speaking audience. So this year we decided to go for it.
So thank you for doing it. Honestly, genuinely, it's a really important testimony of a moment. And the fact that maybe this is something we can go on to touch on, but as a record of something, I think it's invaluable material. How did you meet in the first place? I don't want to be too personal, but
it's a massive party. No,
it might well have been
in the library. So my PhD, I was in the process of turning that into my monograph, and it looks specifically at the theatre and the visual arts as a way of charting the Soviet relationship culturally with Cuba, and if there was an imposition or a rejection of certain tropes, styles, or kind of political approaches to culture and socialism. So socialist realism was a big framework of mine. And I was kind of thinking I was expanding certain parts that I wanted to expand that I hadn't had a chance to put in the thesis. And I remember there's a work of yours in the Museo Nacional de Bellas Artes in Havana, and it is very fluent in the language of socialist realism to the extent that it completely took the mick of it. And I thought, this artist it understands. So I found your website and emailed you and asked to talk to you, and you said yes. And here we are.
That's a really nice journey.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So obviously, how much of the film had you seen before you translated it?
I watched it the whole way through, but only once we decided that
you weren't involved in any of the process.
No.
Fine. So that's the first.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, how did you make it? I mean, there must be hours of footage. How did you? Was there a specific thing you wanted as not a narrative, but there was something that had to come through this that made you think, okay, these are the key moments or the key critical artistic things that had to be in it?
First of all, what happened is that when I started doing this investigation, I decided to do a chronology of the first 10 years of performing art in Cuba, from 79 to 89. When I started investigating, I realized that there was not documentation, basically, because at the time, the artists didn't have the resources, and also there was not that intention of documenting the actions. So many of the artists. That's why exactly Leandro Soto is the first artist who decided to document and who displayed his intention of doing a conceptual ephemeral art. So basically what remains the most is the oral history. So I decided to start filming and doing interviews one-to-one of the artists and witnesses, like curators and people that were witnesses of those events. And yeah, what happened? Yeah, this film that we saw here is compacting several hours of interviews. So I keep the most important aspect, especially for to give the social political panorama chronologically approach of the social political panorama in the performing art in Cuba.
But interestingly, unlike, I'm just trying to think of you're not just, for example, here, the BBC, going to make a programme in Cuba about performance art, because you're in it. You are one of the performing artists.
Exactly.
So did that give you a kind of different, I mean, obviously it is what it is, but you have an insider knowledge as well as an outsider view looking back at
more than anything allow me to approach the artist, the author. That was the most, and then at the same time to have a view from the inside, a view from the inside and have access to details, but more than anything to have access to artists that there were most of them were like very open and very when I approached them, the first response of everyone, it was like, oh yeah, I have material of that. I don't know where it is. I think it's in a drawer. I think I have those pictures. Oh yeah, let me call this guy that I know who, because nobody took really value on those moments, because it was done like a jodera, like a mischief. So this is one aspect of the whole investigation that it was very interesting. And then still coming out a lot of information today.
Sure.
Today, literally today.
And in a way that actually comes out in the film. It's as well as being like this social moment, social document of this moment. The very essence of what the work is what you describe. It's ephemeral, it's immediate, some of it had to happen and it had to stop. It wasn't like curriculum everyone had to do. This was genuinely responding to conditions and moments and situations, and action could be one way of doing it. So it wouldn't be documented. I think that's, again, thank you for kind of going back in, because those kind of social histories that are getting written and rewritten, I think the voice of particularly an artist writing that history is different from a cultural theorist or a curator and maybe I would need to think about it. Maybe you did allow a different conversation to happen as somebody from the inside, looking back from the outside. Because I've talked to Izzy about, okay, why are you interested in all this stuff? And sorry, that sounds rude. Isabel, your research imperatives. Now, our conversation has kind of shared interests around social moments, political moments, historical moments. But I'm really interested in now and what that means now. And in a way, there is a nostalgia, but it isn't nostalgic in the way that you would make a type of documentary film that kind of soften the edges a bit. It's kind of a bit brutal in parts because it's about that moment. This is what happened. So for both of you, it really got me thinking about not what does the film mean now, but what the actions that had to happen that created the material that is in the film. What does that mean now? We know better now, are we?
Now, today.
Does the language of performative actions, as an example in the film, is it still relevant? Is this still happening? Should it still be happening? That's what it got me thinking about. Because, again, you are an art historian, but you're also quite active. I wouldn't say activist, but you are in a campaign. Because these issues are really relevant today. It's not just, we can look backwards and say, God, it was important there, but it's nothing now. This is really important now, what you're saying. Answer that, Isabel.
Yeah, I guess. I guess if you want to read this through the lens of now and the intersection of politics and culture and society now, I think it shows why, in a world of cuts and whatnot, that culture and particularly the arts are important, because they can be this immediate or kind of more long term, but they are always this space for discussion, for discomfort, for pushing back against boundaries, both visible and self-imposed. And they create kind of openings and opportunities for difficult discussions that I think don't get spaces elsewhere. And I think that you can argue that's applicable in a very kind of localized space here, but it's also transnational.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
Good ones too.
There is something, for example, in terms of the practice, of the evolution of the practice, the performance, and the ephemeral gestures and everything that the artist can use to express ideas. Today, the Cuban artist has developed so many new strategies, and the environment also is open and is bigger, because the Cuban art has become like a more generic on the way of is all over the world.
Yeah.
Is participating in all the big institutions of the art and is in the mainstream. So they are producing for the mainstream. At that time, it was like a bubble of information and a bubble of society as well. It was really during the 80s. It was perestroika start coming at the end of the 80s, but in Cuba it never came. Even until today, they know about that, but it's not implied on the government. There was never been a perestroika in Cuba yet. It's never happened. Never. The Berlin Wall fall. It never happened in Cuba. So that makes this information relevant, and these issues that the artists addressed at the time, it makes relevant. And today are many artists in Cuba that can be compared directly with the actions that we saw in this movie, with similar repercussions on their actions. Also artists that have been pushing the boundaries of censorship, pushing the boundaries of social tolerance and political tolerance, and also getting in trouble with the law. It's a very intricate situation, because also the Cuban government and the Cuban institutions has been developed. The Cuban institutions are not simple, are very sophisticated. They grow on the way of taking care of many issues, not only to repress, to block. They also need to address the issue of doing that, maintain the power, maintain the control, but in the best way and looking good. And at the same time, developing the arts, because in Cuba, there are so many artists that develop their careers inside the island, collaborating with the government in so many different ways, and they need to deal with the issues of censorship. And also the artists and also the government deal with those issues openly. You have your security state assign official for you, and he came to your house with a bottle of rum, with a rum bottle, to discuss the problems that you have as an artist. So it's something like this, very open. It's not hiding.
No, how easy was it? You said briefly in your introduction that you're based between Miami and Havana. How easy was it for you? Was it a very active decision to leave, to go to Miami? Or was it, that's the question, was it a very difficult decision? Or was it just matter of fact? It was something.
I based in Miami since '95. I applied for political asylum.
Okay.
In Miami in '95, and has been my base since then. Then, when in 2013, the relationship in between Cuba and the U.S. Relaxed in terms of traveling and citizens to go back to Cuba, in both ways, the American government and the Cuban government. So I really think that as a person, as a human, we all has the right of going back to the place where we were born. I don't need to create any boundary myself. So when this situation was open or was flexible, I immediately applied for all the procedures to get back to Cuba and to have my identity card and everything that they were asking me to be part of the country. Some of them are very offensive because they call you repatriado, which is how could
like repatriated.
Repatriated.
Yeah, it's got a negative.
It's like I lost my motherland and then I have to claim back my mother. It's something that this is their problem. I wanted to be able to get back my normal situation, not to get back my motherland that it always was there. It's like my mother is in Cuba. It has been always there, and the motherland and my culture is there. So I try to create my own freedom, not the freedom that any other government try to impose on me. But I suffer the impositions of. For example, I was banned to enter Cuba. I was banned to travel to Cuba 4 years because of the government, for example. Maybe it's the first time that I publicly talk about that, but I took it as a bureaucratic misunderstanding. And then I keep applying, and then I keep going. The day when they told me, no, you cannot come back anymore, I will say, okay, I will keep trying. I will keep trying because I'm not going to give up.
But what Izzy touched on was, I wonder if that's because you're an artist. I wonder if that's because the work that was in the film that you're part of, clearly in ideologies that become very repressive, culture is the enemy number one to begin with. So to stop voices that might question or have alternative views, we know it's still happening today, unfortunately, very close to home sometimes. But I wonder if it was you as an artist they were worried about rather than you're just a general Cuban citizen. So we were talking a little bit earlier about this idea of today then for you as an artist. I know you're very committed to this idea of how art is a tool for some sort of social negotiation, some sort of dialogue, using whatever means might be available to you. How do you feel? I mean, again, I find it must be odd looking back at yourself in the film. And obviously now you're very active still in your practice. And just again thinking about this idea of the language that you and your fellow artists and that generation created, which we could perhaps look at in terms of performative, engaged social practice. How does that feel today for you? Are you still very committed to that idea, or have you had to adopt different tactics now?
Yes, but I can respond to that from the very personal perspective as an artist.
Sure.
I am 58 years old already, so I'm a mature person. So I I try to be a mature thinker and mature artist as well.
Good.
I try to be mature artist. I have my time when I was 25, 20, 18, that I cannot plan myself today to do the same thing that I did at that time. And the time, at the context, at the time, at the moment, it was different. The environment, the political environment was different. The political situation was different. So today it doesn't have many sense of doing and repeating the same. I also, on the other way, I can be against the same things that I was at that time today, because the system hasn't been changed in Cuba. It's the same family, the same government, the same party that's still in power, and the same institutions that enforce the cultural politics in Cuba. I respect them. I respect them, but not the institution. I respect the person that represents the institution. That is the person like you, face me and shake my hand in Havana when I go there. And I sit and I talk sincerely, like I do it here with you. I express my ideas and they respect my ideas. That doesn't mean that they're not going to enforce the tools that they have to block some ideas that they don't like from me. That doesn't imply that. I understand that, because I understand their position. They need to eat and they respond to a life that they have. And this is it's like when I go to China, I have to understand that in China, I have to also respect the law and the political the cultural politics in this country. I should respect that. I'm not. I don't want to. And in the other way, what I respect from the artists that are activists and they want to achieve political achievement or social political achievement is to be effective. You need to be effective. It's not good to violence a place if you cannot get here and says whatever you want to say. Or if I have something to say against this institution, the best place to say it is right here. So if I'm clever, I need to be able to create a way of coming here and talk to you and say, this is a shit, whatever, you know? But saying here, not that you dump me at the entrance. Oh, what do you do here? Glexis, go back. Go back where you come from. You know? But you need to be effective.
I agree.
That's what I
And in a way, you stop being Cuban at that point. You become, like you say, a human being, an artist working in a position ethically that requires that. Otherwise we have to become, okay, you're Cuban, I'm from here. We have to deal with our differences. We have to get, and I know in your work that's I'm interpreting for you. That's a concern you have. I know that there is an ethical question here as well about cultural production.
And don't take me wrong. I respect the guy who is at the door, kicking the door of the institution. I respect those guys as well. Yeah. But in my position,
I think without wanting to open up a bigger thing, this idea of belonging and social cultural identity, it's a big issue in our country at the moment, about belonging and what that constitutes. And it's everywhere. We know it is. And this is what Izzy and me might perhaps share closer, is this. You mentioned the word Russia, and we'll run out of the room, but we're both engaged deeply in issues that come out of an experience with people in Russia. And this is where I think the ethics of art potentially is a potentially amazing opportunity to have discussion rather than just rebuild more prejudice. And I think your work, thank you again for that.
No, thanks really for having me here.
And may the forces continue to be with you.
Thank you.
Can I open it up to others? If people have Any questions? Because we have them here in the spotlight while they're here. I'll try and close this. Okay, yeah, please.
I'm aware it's very challenging to be an artist or a writer in Cuba, and I realize this is quite a big question, what I'm going to ask it, but what's your hope for the future?
What's my what?
Hope for the future.
My hope?
Hope.
Hope for the future? I'm looking for a democratic Cuba. I think the democracy is not perfect, but it's the only vehicle to create bridges of communication and language. There is no other way of. Cuba needs another party, maybe more than one. But that's politically, politically wise, and that's that's my hope. But I could be very pessimistic at the same time because I don't see any signal of something that is not the permanency of the same system. I don't see any signal yet from them. It's getting more in power, and even in the world, the tendency to autocracy systems are in a rise, and people has more sympathy for those autocracies. And sometimes, for example, like even for myself, I can see the autocracy in China having so many good positive shapes and so many positive faces. So that question myself about autocracy. I know it's an autocracy, and I know it's very implacable, but at the same time has created a very powerful country and has empowered their people. Their own people are proud of being Chinese, of being not the starving Chinese of the past. They are the richest Chinese of today. So that is a lot of hope and positive transformation, because the world is also, it needs to be transformed, it needs to be changed permanently. The law has to change continually with the life of the people. So I hope transformation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for the great film and this talk. Really enjoyable. I have a question about censorship. I just came back from Vietnam and I spoke to a group of artists about censorship. Censorship in Vietnam is very strong. I mean, there's one exhibition where they 400 pieces took 200 pieces away. So it's all pervasive. It's very prevalent. And to my great surprise, I asked the artist, do you want to talk about censorship? Is this something that's concerning you? And they all said, no, we're not concerned about it. I don't even want to engage in a discussion about it because, and I think I understand why, because it's so prevalent. It's like talking about the white paint on the wall. It's just there, Yeah. And I would be just curious to hear from your perspective, because censorship featured very strongly in the film. Is in Cuba today censorship so normalized that it's just like breathing air? Or is there still something exceptional about it that artists, articulate, I am being censored or I am censoring myself? I would just be curious.
As I explained before, the Cuban institutions are really sophisticated. They work 24 hours, 24/7, to accomplish whatever they want. There is censorship in Cuba, but there is also self-censorship from the artists themselves. The artists already are instructed in the detailed boundaries that the space where they can go, how far they can go with their art, because the government has been very detailed, inform the artist how far you can go. You can do this, but do not put this image, do not use this symbol as specifics, not concepts, it's like specifics. And it's very wide, the tolerance, I can say that. It's something that it could be very controversial in between my fellow Cubans. It's very wide. If you go to Havana, go to the galleries and institutions, you can be surprised how far can go this tolerance. But when you get to the point where there is the border, there is no mercy. The censorship in Cuba today is, as I said before, is sophisticated. Is related to the law, and when they enforce the law to an artist, they're not enforcing a law that looks like a censorship from the institution, the cultural institution. It's the law that process a common burglar, a common un delinquente. A delinquent, yeah. It's the law for the delinquent that takes the artist to jail. So they found a way of apply this law technically to take the artist to jail, to take the artist to interrogatory, to put a guard on the door of the artist's home every day, surveillance any moment, anyone who go in and out, and then very very patiently and very cautiously they don't go to you as an artist and hit you directly like that. No, they take steps, and then somebody hit you. But it's not rough. It's not something. It's something very methodical. We need to know that the Stasi, he was training the Cuban specialist in Cuba. So it's not something that is coming from a Caribbean torture guy, this rude guy that came and smash your finger with the hammer. It's not like that. It's more psychologically, it's more sophisticated. You sit with people that has PhD in psychology. They are sophisticated. So it's a whole system that became rough, that became the challenge your human rights, your most basic personal freedom, but it's not like in the rest of Latin America. And I think this is the difference in Cuba, how they apply the system, but in a way of being sophisticated. Part of that has to do with the connection with Russia and how well the socialist countries.
It's a well-trained system.
Yeah,
it is.
Those are systems that
Absolutely.
are sophisticated.
It's years and years of
educated
practice.
People.
Yeah.
In Latin America, the people that took the artists are like another delinquent dressed as a policeman that took the artists to jail and maybe killed them or maybe tortured them or maybe disappeared them. But in Cuba, it's not like that. We cannot say like that. We cannot say that it's like that. Some people says that it's like that. My father has been in jail because of political prisoner. My father, he left the country. So I have the experience.
Thanks. We have another type of censorship, very different. Soft censorship. We have to leave, which is really unfortunate because I think we're really beginning to touch things. And again, it's through the language of artistic dialogue that generates this discussion and allows us to have this discussion. And again, I have to really thank you. Thank you both
Thank you
for this.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
please, thank you.